can't get that note at all. It doesn't really matter. In the playthrough, I guess I'll sing it down the octave. It's a very straightforward song. 16 bars of verse that just go around 3 times. After the second one, there's a separate 12-bar bridge that's a little bit devious, but nothing to worry about. And we've got this 4-bar intro that we just heard, and then there's an outro. So the very ending of each verse is slightly different. But as I say, there's nothing that we can't keep tabs on. I'll just show you the first 4 chords for the intro, and then I'll give you a strumming pattern that I'm going to use for this that hopefully makes sense. We've got a bar of G, a bar of D, but with F sharp in the bass. And I'm just going to wrap my thumb round there on the 2nd fret of the bottom string to C, but with E in the bass. So far, we're getting this descending bass line. If I could, I'd go down to a D, but I've run out of guitar, so I am going to play the open 4th string underneath this D11, or C over D if you like. You could play exactly the same chord by barring the middle 4 strings at the 5th fret. It's a slightly warmer sound perhaps, and this is a little bit brittle, but it's exactly the same thing. And the original, we have boom, ch, ka-boom, boom, ch, boom, ch, ka-boom, boom, ch, this sort of rock ballad feel that we get. So what I'm going to do is pick the bass note, or perhaps strum firmly on the bottom string, and then on the 2nd beat, the upper strings only for the back beat, and then I'm going to repeat that. That kind of thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. But all this is going to be within the framework of 16ths. So in fact, ding, dak, and if I keep my hand nice and loose, I'm actually going to pick up some of these little up strums as well. That kind of thing. The only other thing to say is that actually, although we have a single bass drum on the 1st beat, boom, ch, on the 3rd beat, boom, boom, that I think is heard in the bass guitar as well. So in fact, boom, we put that into the intro chords, we get this. And I'm going to pause there. The road is long. And that gets us into the verse. And I'm just going to carry on doing exactly the same thing pretty much throughout the song. We'll see, maybe in the bridge we'll try something different. But that's the idea, that's the strumming, and we've got the intro. And in fact the verse carries on in exactly the same way. A bar of G. The road is long with many, same chord, a winding turn, C over E, and this time we've got something a little more complex. We've got A minor 7 for 2, and then D for 1, and then if you want it, D sharp diminished for a single beat. You could play a B7 there, but actually D sharp diminished is really what you want before we get on to E minor for a part. The road is long with many a winding turn that leads us to, taking us to F. Knows where, who knows where, A minor 7 for a bar, and then this D11 again. And actually it settles back at the 2nd half of the bar onto a D, but that's the 1st half done. Now we carry on. But I'm strong, carries on the same way. Strong enough to carry him. Now we have a bar of E flat. It's a little bit unusual, and it's nobody's favourite chord, but maybe the best way to play this is to bar on the 6th fret, and then I'm just going to smush my 3rd finger kind of backwards onto the 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings at the 8th fret. Okay. There is a little workaround for this. If you don't want to play it this way, you could try this, playing a C chord up here, so my 1st finger's on the 4th fret. That's better. It's not great, I've only got 2 different notes. I've got an E flat and a G here, but if I add the little finger on the top string at the 6th fret, then I've got a fully fledged E flat. Again, slightly unusual voicing, but that might work. Anyway, that comes in, and then we've got he ain't heavy, he's my brother. So there's nothing new after that. Let's just have the whole of the verse one time through. Am I in tune, more or less? The road is long, with many a wind and turn, that leads us to who knows where, who knows where. But I'm strong enough to carry him. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. So on we go, and we're into the second verse, which, as I say, is exactly the same. The only difference is that in the very last chord, we end with G in the first verse and then A minor 7 and our D11. This time we're going into the bridge, which begins on a chord of C, C major 7 actually. So what we're going to do, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. G as before, then A minor 7 as before, but this time I want a G7 to lead us into the C, but I'm going to put a B in the bass. If I'm laden, and that takes us into the bridge, so the very end of the second verse. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. Now we're stepping up. If I'm laden, and that takes us into the bridge. So we kick off the bridge with a bar of this C major 7, and then we move to D for a bar and back, but the note that we've got here on the 3rd fret of the 5th string, that's held underneath the first 4 bars of the bridge. If I'm laden, so when we move to D, I'm going to finger that with my little finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. If I'm laden at all, well, I'm laden with sadness. Okay, very late 60s kind of a sound, very groovy. Bit more grooviness now. B minor for a bar and D minor for a bar. That everyone's heart isn't filled. Back to our C major 7, and now we've got a sequence of chords that last for 2 beats only. C major 7, B7, E minor, G7 over D, so just the top 4 strings of a straight G7 chord, and then C for 2, E minor but with B in the bass for 2, and we land on A7. Okay, and we finish off with 2 bars of D11, and you might play a bit of D in the second of those, maybe the first 2 beats of the second bar, and then move back to D11. That everyone's heart isn't filled with the gladness of love for one another. It's a long, long road out into the 3rd verse. So we get to verse 3, that takes us into the outro. And if I go from what ought to be the last 4 bars of the 3rd verse, you'll see what happens is that we actually miss the last 2 bars of the verse and we go straight into this new section. And the new section has a harmonica solo, and in fact, in terms of the chords, it's identical to the first 8 bars of the verse. He ain't heavy, he's my and it's just like the verse now. A minor for 2 to D, D sharp diminished, E minor. A minor 7, and to finish the song, my brother. We just have a 4-bar loop that's exactly the same as the intro. C over E here to D11, and that just repeats to fade. And that's everything I've got. So it's time for me to repeat and fade. Let's have a little playthrough. Thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully see you on the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4.
If I play